The fluorescent lights of the precinct hummed, a relentless, buzzing soundtrack to my already frayed nerves. I was Officer Miller, fresh out of the academy, and tonight was my graveyard shift at the old Blackwood police station. Blackwood PD wasn't exactly a bustling hub of criminal activity. Mostly petty theft, noise complaints, the occasional domestic dispute. But the building itself, the building always felt like it was holding its breath, waiting. The station was a relic, a hulking brick monstrosity built back in the early 1900s. The city had tried to tear it down years ago, deemed it structurally unsafe and riddled with asbestos, but the budget for a new station kept getting slashed. So here we were, stuck in a building that felt more like a haunted house than a place of law and order. Tonight was particularly quiet. Too quiet. The phones were silent. The only sound the rhythmic ticking of the ancient grandfather clock in the lobby and the occasional creak of the building settling. Sergeant Reynolds, a man whose face looked like it had been carved from granite and weathered by 1,000 storms, was on duty with me. He was in his office, door closed, probably snoring loud enough to rattle the filing cabinets. I was at the front desk, pretending to read a report about a stolen lawn gnome while my mind wandered into the darker corners of Blackwood's history. I'd heard the stories, of course. Every cop who'd worked here had. Whispers of a brutal murder that had taken place in the holding cells back in the 50s. A prisoner, driven mad by isolation, who'd taken his own life in a particularly gruesome way. Some even claimed the building was built on an old burial ground, though I always dismissed that as local color. Suddenly, the lights flickered. Just a brief, unsettling stutter, but enough to make my heart jump. The hum intensified, then died altogether, plunging the front desk into near darkness. The only light came from the emergency backup, casting long, distorted shadows across the room. "Damn it!" I muttered, grabbing my flashlight. Probably just a blown fuse, but in this place, even a blown fuse felt ominous. "Miller? What's going on out there?" Sergeant Reynolds' voice boomed from his office, the sound amplified by the sudden silence. "Power outage, Sarge. Just a fuse, I think." "Well, fix it, Miller. I can't sleep with the lights out." I sighed and headed for the basement, the location of the ancient fuse box. The basement was easily the worst part of the building. Cold, damp, and smelling perpetually of mildew and something vaguely metallic, it felt like the kind of place where sanity went to die. The stairs creaked under my weight as I descended, the beam of my flashlight cutting through the oppressive darkness. Cobwebs brushed against my face, and I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck standing on end. I told myself it was just the power outage, just the dark, just the creepiness of the building. But deep down, a primal fear was beginning to stir. I found the fuse box tucked away in a corner, a rusty metal monstrosity covered in grime. As I fiddled with the fuses, I heard it, a faint scratching sound, coming from the far end of the basement. "Hello," I called out, my voice wavering slightly. "Sergeant Reynolds, is that you?" Silence. Then the scratching again. Closer this time. It sounded like fingernails dragging across concrete. I shone my flashlight towards the sound, the beam dancing nervously across the darkness. Nothing. Just the rough, unfinished walls and the shadowy piles of forgotten junk. Probably just rats, I told myself, trying to sound more confident than I felt. Blackwood was known for its robust rodent population. I replaced the blown fuse, and with a satisfying click, the power surged back on. The fluorescent lights flickered to life, chasing away the shadows. I breathed a sigh of relief, the tension in my shoulders easing slightly. "See? Just a fuse," I said aloud, forcing a chuckle. "Nothing to worry about." As I turned to leave, I saw it. A dark shape moving in the periphery of my vision. A fleeting glimpse, gone before I could focus on it. I whirled around, my hand instinctively reaching for my service weapon. "Who's there?" Nothing. The basement was empty, but the scratching had stopped. I stood there for a moment, my heart pounding, trying to convince myself that I'd imagined it. Just stress, just the dark, just the atmosphere of the building. "Okay, Miller, get a grip," I muttered. "Back upstairs. Report to the Sarge." Everything's fine. But as I climbed the stairs, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that something was lurking in the shadows, waiting. Back at the front desk, Sergeant Reynolds was standing there, looking grumpy. "What took you so long, Miller?" "Just a blown fuse, Sarge. All fixed now." He grunted. "Good. Now stay alert. And try not to trip any more circuits." I nodded and returned to my post, but I couldn't concentrate on the report. My mind was still in the basement, replaying the fleeting glimpse of that dark shape. The rest of the night passed without incident, but the feeling of unease lingered. Every creak of the building, every shadow, seemed to amplify my anxiety. I jumped at every sound, my hand hovering near my weapon. As dawn approached, the sky began to lighten, casting a pale gray light through the grimy windows. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. Almost done. Just a few more hours and I could go home and sleep. Then the phones started ringing. Not just one phone, but all of them all at once. A cacophony of shrill, insistent ringing that sent a jolt of adrenaline through my system. I grabbed the receiver, my voice trembling slightly. "Blackwood Police Department, Officer Miller speaking." Silence. Just static. I hung up and tried another phone. Same thing. "Sarge," I called out. "The phones are going crazy, but there's nothing on the line." Sergeant Reynolds emerged from his office, looking even more haggard than usual. "What's going on, Miller? What's with all the noise?" "The phones, Sarge. They're all ringing, but there's nothing there." He picked up a phone and listened. His face darkened. "Damn it. Must be a short in the system." Suddenly, the ringing stopped, just as abruptly as it had started. The silence that followed was even more deafening than the noise. "Okay, Miller," Sergeant Reynolds said, his voice low and serious. "Something's not right. I want you to check the holding cells. Make sure everything's secure." The holding cells were located in the back of the building, a dark and claustrophobic maze of steel bars and concrete walls. They hadn't been used in years, not since the county jail had opened. But they were still there, a grim reminder of the darker side of law enforcement. I walked down the hallway, my footsteps echoing in the silence. The air grew colder, and the smell of mildew and decay intensified. I drew my weapon, my hand clammy with sweat. As I reached the entrance to the holding cells, I saw it. A flickering light, coming from inside. "Hello," I called out, my voice barely a whisper. "Is anyone there?" No answer. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. The flickering light came from a single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling, casting long, distorted shadows across the cells. And then I saw it. In the last cell at the very end of the hallway, a figure was sitting on the floor, hunched over, its back to me. "Hey!" I shouted, my voice cracking. "Police! Show yourself!" The figure didn't move. I slowly approached the cell, my weapon raised. As I got closer, I could make out more details. The figure was wearing tattered clothes, and its hair was long and matted. I said, "Show yourself." The figure slowly raised its head, and I saw its face, or what was left of it. It was a gaunt, skeletal face, with hollow eyes that burned with an unholy light. The skin was stretched tight over the bones, and there were deep gashes and scars across the cheeks and forehead. The mouth was twisted into a silent scream. I stumbled backward, my mind reeling. This wasn't a person. This was something else. Something wrong. The figure rose to its feet, its movements slow and jerky. It took a step towards the bars, its eyes fixed on me. And then it spoke. Its voice was a raspy, guttural whisper that seemed to claw its way out of the depths of its being. "Get out," it croaked. "Get out now." I didn't need to be told twice. I turned and ran, my feet pounding against the concrete floor. I didn't stop running until I was back at the front desk, gasping for breath. "Sarge," I yelled. "There's something in the holding cells. Something. I don't know what it is." Sergeant Reynolds looked at me, his expression a mixture of disbelief and concern. "What are you talking about, Miller? What's in the holding cells?" "I don't know, Sarge. A creature. It told me to get out." He stared at me for a moment, then sighed. "Okay, Miller, calm down. Let's go take a look. He grabbed his weapon and we headed back towards the holding cells. As we approached the entrance, I hesitated. Sarge, I don't think we should go in there. Don't be ridiculous, Miller. It's probably just some homeless guy who snuck in. We'll get him out of there. He pushed past me and stepped into the hallway. I followed close behind, my weapon still raised, my heart pounding in my chest. As we reached the last cell, we stopped. Sergeant Reynolds peered inside. The cell was empty. See, Miller? Nothing here. Just an empty cell. I stared at the cell, my mind racing. I knew what I had seen. I hadn't imagined it. But it was here, Sarge. I swear it was here. He shook his head. You're just tired, Miller. Let's get back to the front desk. As we turned to leave, I saw something scrawled on the wall of the cell. A message written in what looked like blood. Get out. I pointed to the message, my voice shaking. Sarge, look. He followed my gaze. His face paled. What is that? Suddenly, the lights flickered again. The same unsettling stutter as before. The hum intensified, then died, plunging the hallway into darkness. Damn it! Sergeant Reynolds shouted. Not again. Then we heard it. The scratching. Coming from the walls. Closer this time. Louder. And then a chorus of whispers. All around us. Filling the hallway with a cacophony of voices. Get out! Get out! Get out! Sergeant Reynolds grabbed my arm. We need to get out of here, Miller. Now! We turned and ran, but it was too late. The hallway was changing, twisting. The walls were closing in. The shadows were growing longer, darker. We reached the entrance to the holding cells, but the door was gone, replaced by a solid wall of brick. No! I screamed. No, no, no! We were trapped. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. The scratching intensified, the sound of fingernails tearing at the walls. And then the figures emerged from the shadows. Gaunt, skeletal faces. Hollow eyes burning with an unholy light. They were all around us, closing in. Sergeant Reynolds raised his weapon and fired, the shots echoing through the hallway. But the bullets had no effect. The figures kept coming. He turned to me, his face filled with terror. Run, Miller. Get out of here. He shoved me towards a doorway I hadn't noticed before. A dark, narrow passage that led into the depths of the building. I didn't hesitate. I ran. I ran through the darkness, the whispers chasing me. I could hear Sergeant Reynolds behind me, screaming. Then silence. I didn't look back. I stumbled through the maze of corridors and rooms, desperate to escape. The building seemed to be alive, shifting and changing around me. Finally, I saw it. A door. A way out. I lunged for it, my hand grasping the handle. I pulled it open and stumbled out into the night. I ran as fast as I could, not stopping until I was far away from the Blackwood police station. I never went back. I quit the force soon after. I couldn't shake the memory of what I had seen, what I had experienced. I still hear the whispers sometimes, in the dark, when I'm alone, and I know that the Blackwood police station is still there, waiting, holding its breath.